today I will be reviewing as psychologist another Korean drama, What is Wrong with Secretary Kim, and I will be specifically focusing on those aspects of the drama that highlights issues related to mental health. And this drama actually has many of these. So just to give you a very brief overview of the main two characters that we'll be talking about. Lee Young-jun, he is a successful businessman, and Kim Mi-so, she is his devoted secretary that has been working for him now for over 9 years. Young-jun is really interesting character because initially when we meet him, he comes across as a very selfish and narcissistic person who cannot see world besides himself. But as the story progresses, then we can actually start seeing glimpses of humanity in him. And we are being shown that actually he is experiencing many different emotions and he does care for people, but he doesn't really show that vulnerability in him. So we could say that he's very protective of this part of himself. And maybe he just doesn't feel safe enough to show this vulnerability in him. And then also later we learn the reason for that. As the story of the drama develops, we also learn that the main two characters, they were actually kidnapped as children, and now in their adulthood they are experiencing mental health issues that are consequences of this incident. And however, both of them, they've experienced the same trauma really. Now their emotional struggles are really different. So here we can see the secretary Kim, who's sitting in a restaurant with her sisters and she's just enjoying her time. But suddenly she just spotted a spider and she got really scared. And this is because she's experiencing arachnophobia, which is the fear of spiders. And potentially this is linked to the fact that when she was a child, when she was kidnapped, Lee Young-jun, he created a story of a human giant spider to protect her from looking towards the dead body of the woman who kidnapped them. An interesting fact about phobias is that actually majority of phobias have actually very little to do with the actual feared object, situation, or person. So for instance, if someone has the fear of spiders, arachnophobia, right? They actually never experienced any incident in the past where maybe spider bit them, where maybe a spider jumped on them, where maybe they felt really stuck with the spider. So the actual emotion of fear that they're experiencing now in their current life when they see the spider is to do with something very different. So it might be to do with maybe lack of stability when they were growing up as children. Here in the situation we can see really nicely how Kim Mi-so is instantly becoming very alert. So her breathing becomes very shallow, her heart is racing because she's putting a hand to her chest. And that then shows that the fight, flight, or freeze response is being activated. So in this instance, perhaps the adrenaline is being released into her bloodstream, preparing her to run away from the danger. Here we have really nice scene where Lee Young is experiencing nightmare and he can see fragmented images of when he was kidnapped. So that means here the adrenaline is gonna be released into his bloodstream that will kick off the fight, flight, and freeze response. And we can see that he's sweating excessively. And this is actually one of the most common symptoms that people who are experiencing PTSD or high anxiety are complaining about. And this is because that in situations when our brain is predicting potential danger, the fight and flight response is being activated, our body is prepared to defend ourselves, maybe to run away. So in a case when our body, our mind is predicting that we're gonna have to run really fast, means we're gonna produce a lot of heat. So in order to get rid of that excess heat, we need to sweat, and that's why the high anxiety and panic are actually making us to sweat a lot. On the other hand, in this scene here, we can see Kim Mi-so, who just received a gift from her boss, Lee Young, and she's all excited, and that was the time when she started to fall in love with him. When we are in love, our body starts to produce dopamine, and then as a result of that, we feel excited and we focus more on the loved person. Also, production of the norepinephrine, which is the neurotransmitter and a hormone, is being increased, increasing our heart rate and blood pressure, in creating that then sensation of butterflies in our stomach. And also an interesting fact that when production of dopamine and norepinephrine are being increased, we might actually struggle with sleep because of the racing thoughts and excitement. In the scene here, we can see Lee Young experiencing a flashback, which is one of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And flashback, it is nothing than a fragmented memory being replayed in our mind, making us believe as if the trauma was happening all over again. So this means that the visual memory comes also with really strong emotional response of fear. And this is very clearly demonstrated here with the activation of the fight, flight, and freeze response when the levels of adrenaline are being instantly raised in his bloodstream. All of this happens instantly before even he can realize that he pushed Kim Mi-so away. And this is actually really interesting. So here we can see that that response of pushing Kim Mi-so was driven here by the fear center in our brain that actually responds much faster to threat than our thinking part of the brain. So this means that in threat situation, he will act faster than he can think. With Lee Yang, we know that when he's closing his eyes or when he's close to a young woman, he tends to experience flashbacks. That means that he will be taken back to when he was kidnapped as a child. However, for many people, they might experience this emotional surge, but they might not be able to associate that with any memories from the past. That's why those flashbacks, they might feel very random and unsettling for them. Here in this scene, Kim Mi-so and Lee Yang, they're having another go at trying to kiss each other. And because Kim Mi-so, she's already aware about the triggers and the consequences as well of the trigger, she's trying to make the situation lighter by joking with Lee Young. And I find that people who are experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD or trauma, they actually really struggle in relationships, and especially in romantic relationships. And I believe that one of the reasons why is that it is because we don't talk enough, we don't have enough awareness about post-traumatic stress disorder and intimacy. I believe that when someone is dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, it is not only them who needs to have good awareness of their triggers and their symptoms, but it's also their romantic partner and also other family members who needs to really learn what post-traumatic stress disorder is, how it's impacting the partner or maybe the friend or maybe the child. And then only when everyone are on one page, that's when they can start communicating better about their needs, about the expectations, about their limitations. Here we have another scene where Lee Young is experiencing flashback, but that's in different contexts. So when he was a child, when he was kidnapped, his legs were tied with cable ties, and now every time when he sees cable ties, he experiencing flashback. So we can see that his fight and flight and freeze response is being activated, there's shallow breathing, and he's sweating. And what's really interesting about the fight, flight, and freeze response is that we could see it on a volume, we could see it on a scale. So normally the freeze response is being activated when we are in the highest distress, because we can't even run away, we cannot even fight for ourselves, so we just freeze because there's no other option, there's no escape. And towards the end of the scene, we can see that Lee Young, he became frustrated, a bit agitated, and that could be his defensiveness, trying to protect his vulnerability and also his masculinity. In this scene, I was a bit confused. So what it seems to me is that Lee Young, he's waking up from nightmare. And then Kim Mi-seo, she's asking him whether he's experiencing sleep paralysis very often. I'm unsure whether this is only a translation error or whether there is some specific reason why she's using the sleep paralysis term. Sleep paralysis, it is actually a very different phenomenon to a nightmare. Sleep paralysis normally occurs in the morning when we're waking up from dreaming. So our mind is already awake, but our body is still in that sort of state of a paralysis that is actually preventing us from acting out dreams. If you're interested in learning more about sleep paralysis, then you can watch one of my videos where I talk specifically about this condition. And if you know the reason why Kim Mi-seo is using the term sleep paralysis rather than nightmare, then let me know about it in the comment section. Here there's another scene where Kim Mi-seo, she's asking many questions about the kidnapping because she wants to have answers. She doesn't really have memories of what has happened when she was kidnapped as a child. And only later, towards the end of the series, she was able to recall everything what has happened. And actually, it is quite common that people, they might be living years without actually having any memories of what has happened to them. Or it might be that they're living for years, their whole life, without having these clear memories, and then suddenly they might be start recalling some fragmented memories. It is actually quite unusual that the person will start remembering each and everything that has happened to them as it happened in this case here. Normally people, they only experience very fragmented memories. And if you would like to learn more about the reasons why it is very difficult to recall the whole situation as a whole story, and why it is more common for people to recall only fragmented memories, you can learn about it in one of my videos where I talk about post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociations. So here we have a very good representation of the fight, flight and freeze response. So he's sweating, he's shivering, his skin is really pale because the blood is being drained from his skin towards his organs and his muscles, because the body again is preparing him for instance, flying, the danger of fighting for himself. So that's why he needs to have a lot of power in his organs and also in his muscles rather than in his skin. On the other hand, here we have Kim Mi-seo, who's experiencing flashbacks, and this is when she actually started to recall everything. So it's possibly that the visuals, the lighting triggered in her those memories of when she was kidnapped. And here, because of the intense stress that she's experiencing, she actually collapsed. In those situations when we faint because of extreme stress or because of some physical pain, it is actually our mind protecting us from this extreme stress or pain by giving us a break from that. I really like this scene when Kim Mi-seo and Lee Young are stuck in a library during the blackout. And here Kim Mi-seo, she's actually pointing to her boss that his senses became sharper. So he is talking about the fruity or citrusy scent that he can smell from her with potentially her shampoo. And then he's also noticing that she's walking really fast, although she's been always walking like that. And potentially his eyes became more sensitive to light. And one of the reasons why his senses became more sharper, it could be as well to do with the fact that there's less distraction, is only two of them, there's no one else, there's nothing else happening. So he can put more attention on her, he can focus on her more. But another reason for that, it might be as well that his anxiety is being heightened because they're in a dark place. And potentially that darkness is also reminding him of the time when he was kidnapped and when he was sitting in a dark room. So that means that his adrenaline is already being heightened, and that means that his sense is gonna be sharper. So he's gonna hear things better, he's gonna smell things more, and his eyes, they're gonna be more sensitive to the light. This is all what I prepared for you today, and if you enjoyed this video, then please like it, subscribe. And if you have any suggestions of what next series or movie I should review, then please let me know about it in the comment section, and I'm gonna see you in the next one then. Thank you, bye bye.